Say good afternoon to everybody. We're coming to you live here from Austin, Texas, our first ever Austin Home Live series. Our topic today, remodeling your home to sell. I'm Clay Simmons here of AustinSketch, and with me today is Chris Lambert of East Austin Carpenters and Clay McLaughlin of Keller Williams. We're so glad that you guys have joined us. Feel free and drop your comments and questions there within YouTube Live. We'll do our best to get as many answered as possible. I'm hearing the Austin market has changed. Maybe a lot even in the last year, but maybe even quite a bit even in the last 6 months. Clay, I'd love to get your point of view and perspective on where we are today.
Yeah, it's a big change, and it's a welcome change for buyers, and it's new waters for sellers. And it really changed the second quarter of this year. First quarter, we were still strong and still seeing multiple offers, multiple homes going pending really quickly, but that all stopped kind of around the rate change. But I think other things added to it that just kind of stalled the market a little bit. Just looking today, we are at 8,500 active homes on the MLS. That doesn't include condos or anything like that. And that's for our entire market area, from Round Rock to San Marcos to Lakeway and Spicewood, all the way to Bastrop. During pandemic times, we were seeing 1,000 homes, maybe 1,500 homes. So now with 8,500, buyers have choices. They can start to negotiate more. They have they can be pickier. It used to be that whatever house came on Thursday, you looked at it and you put a multiple offer in and you crossed your fingers and you hoped you got it on Monday. And you didn't terminate it because you didn't want to go through that process again. So whatever repairs there were or whatever problems, they were yours. You owned it. You got a house and you were thankful for that. So seeing the market go back to pre-pandemic times, just where it's an opportunity to negotiate, an opportunity to be picky, and it's welcome for buyers and just different for sellers.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about, I guess last week, it was, or maybe still is, a seller's market, and then I heard the term a neutral market, and then obviously we hear the term buyer's market. Give us an idea on the pendulum where we're at and kind of where we're going.
So, based on the numbers last week's and the weeks before, climbing up from that 1,000 or 1,000 home inventory, it's still a seller's market. But the force of it moving toward a buyer's market was coming at it so fast that I never really believed it to be a seller's market. So now that we're at 8,500 homes, that to me feels more balanced. And over the years, that's where that market usually sits. So if you're a seller in this market and you're putting your house on the market, it's not the seller's market where you list on Thursday and it's sold on Monday. And when you're a buyer, back in 2021 and 2022, if you were coming to look at houses, I might have 2 or 3 to show you, maybe, and we have to wait on Thursday, and then you go show it and there's line out the door and you're walking through it. That's not happening today. Like today, you can go look at a house this week and it's still on the market next week, and you can kind of think about it and take your time. So to me, we've accomplished that medium buyer seller market. We're right in the middle. Yeah, I don't think it's weighted either way.
So, I mean, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, I guess if you're a seller, you're going to have to be a little bit more competitive. But when you've reached an equilibrium of buyers and sellers, that's a healthy market, right? I mean, that's a good place to be. Would you say? Would you agree?
Absolutely. And then with Austin appreciating 30% year over year in most cases, the sellers are still sitting on a lot of equity. And they might have to peel some of it back right now, maybe 10%, maybe 15, could be 20. But most of these sellers had such a big run up that they're still very much in the black. And so having missed the top of the market, that might have been December, January, or November of last year, that might have been the best time to sell. And you could have gotten more than you ever thought. And now you're getting a little bit less than that. Might be 5% less than that. It could be 10 or it could be 15, but it's still such a big number after you've seen 30% year over year appreciation, that sellers are still in a very good spot to walk away and not have to write a check or make some money on their house.
Nice. Well, you've teed up our topic perfectly because, here at AustinSketch, we're constantly talking with customers about their remodel projects. And I would say more times than not, a homeowner has not one project, but like 3 or 4 projects. They've got like a kitchen, and oh, by the way, can you look at our master bath? And oh, by the way, we want to add a cabana or a pergola, or, you know, something like this. And what I get often is, you know, how should we prioritize these things? And quite honestly, I never really have a way to respond to that. I'm like, well, where do you spend most of your time? And I think a lot of people are saying, yeah, you know what, I want to invest in my home. I'm going to be here for maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years, but I've got to also make the investments in a very prudent way so that we get our money back. And so I don't know what to tell them in those situations. You know, I wouldn't know whether to say, yeah, you know, invest in the pergola over the kitchen or the master bath or whatever. And I think that's where they really need to, you know, connect with a really solid, you know, agent such as yourself to really give them that understanding of where to, you know, get the most bang for your buck. What are your thoughts? I mean, where do you tell people where they should be making most of their investments in their homeowner or their home remodel projects?
So every house is unique, and what I'm saying is kind of globally, but it can't really be applied to every individual house. Like, you should have a professional agent come out and tell you, like, sometimes you have to do the kitchen or you have to do the floors because they're terrible, but sometimes they're okay. For the most part, I kind of tell people, if you're going to invest in something you don't have. Like, your kitchen already has counters, it already has cabinets, but you might not have an outdoor kitchen. You might not have the pergola. Your landscaping in the back might be non-existent because you lived there for years and you didn't really care, but the new buyer coming in might care. So my first place is to always kind of look at something you don't have that you can add value to it, right? But the caveat to that is, I'm not telling you to tint the windows on your car to make it more valuable and you're running around on bald tires, right? Like, the tires are a little bit more important. Like, you know, you don't have tint and you do have tires, but they're shot, like, fix those.
Yeah.
You got to do that.
Great analogy. Yes, great analogy. Chris, you and I've done a lot of projects together. I know you're seeing a lot of, you know, construction projects going on. What are you seeing in terms of the driving factors? And are people looking at these remodels from a sales perspective? Or I think we were even working on a project that somebody had just bought a project. I'd love to get your point of view on this.
Yeah, well, I would say most of the time, when people are talking about, you know, some people are more self-conscious than others about whether or not they'll be able to sell their house or they'll be able to get a good price for it, when, you know, there are a number of issues that may or may not exist that are important, you know. And I think a lot of what Clay's talking about with the market conditions really play into that too, because in the past, like the past 3 to 5 years, you know, most of my advice to people, even though it's sort of counterintuitive, like, yeah, I want to do your remodeling project or whatever, and because that's my business. But at the same time, like, you know, you dumping like 50 grand into a new kitchen or something like that, it's not really going to affect the value of the house a lot. When, you know, more things like exterior renovations are going to give people more of a positive return. I was just looking at there's something people can look at too to get an idea of like what projects are costing right now in Austin, and also what kind of return you can expect to get on a range of projects. I don't know exactly how accurate it is. I was just talking to some people in this remodelers forum about it, and a lot of the pricing it's the cost value report. It's Remodeling Magazine, but they were saying that a lot of the prices they're seeing in there are permit values. So a lot of the time when, you know, people permit projects, they're not going to actually, I mean, you just pretty much give them the number, right? It's sort of like when you sell your car, you're like, okay, my car is worth 20 grand, right? And then you pay taxes on that. So nobody's going to sell a $30,000 car and say it's $30,000, right? They're going to say they sold it for 20 or whatever. And then, so it's hard to know exactly, like, I mean, the numbers do give you some idea of like as an average of like what people are expecting. But
Cool.
I think a lot of it plays into too, and the conditions right now. I'm curious to ask Clay about this, Clay McLaughlin. What do you think the market conditions, as far as like not just the stock market as going downhill like it's been for the last 3 months, but also the changes in interest rates, and how does that affect what's going on right now with the availability of funding, for people or people uncertain, and like how does that affect the amount of offers being thrown around?
Well, it's a good question. And I think that one of the things that the best way to answer that is when the interest rates went up, people's actual buying power went down. When you're looking at a $750,000 house at 2.5%, or you're looking at a $750,000 at 5%, your monthly payment is dramatically different. And most people that we see have a finite amount of down payment, and then they have a maximum amount that they can pay per month. And so that $750,000 house at 2.5%, that buyer at 5% or 5.5% might be looking now at $600,000 houses. And one of the things that's evident from that too is they don't have that extra money to make those improvements. Sellers right now have a lot of equity in their homes and ways to access that through HELOCs. And yes, that there's higher interest rates for those right now. But if you're only doing it to make improvements and selling the house, you're not paying that much interest because you're paying it back quick. But buyers don't really have that buying power to make the improvements. The sellers do. And so what I'm recommending to more sellers is to make those improvements for the buyers, and you'll get more money now. Last 2 years, put your house on the market. It's going to sell. It might not sell for a lot, but it's going to sell for more than you expected. And the buyers there's tons of them. There's 10 buyers for every one house. So just sell it and you'll be done with it. But now we're seeing the houses that need the work to sit on the market and languish a little bit longer, because buyers don't want the dirty carpet. They don't want the dirty paint. They don't want the old kitchens. They want the new, nice and fresh. And down the street, there's a house that's listed that way. Like in every market, there's always something that's a little bit nicer than the one that you want to sell. So I'm recommending sellers to do that work. But Chris, the other question I had for you too is when I do meet with these sellers, they kind of always ask like, well, what's the ballpark? And I know every house is different and unique, but you kind of threw out earlier that a kitchen's about 50 grand or something like that. And is that kind of a good number? Like if somebody's going to redo a kitchen, should they look at 50 grand? And if they're going to do a bathroom, is like each bathroom 10 grand. And then flooring, is that, 15, 20 bucks a foot, or what's the kind of good rough estimate to tell people?
Yeah, well, it's tough, because there's a lot of decisions that go into those spaces. I would say like right now, if someone contacts me about a kitchen remodel or bathroom remodel, I tell them like kitchen remodels start at around 35,000, and that's that's everything for a basic kitchen. It's not hard to spend $100,000 on a kitchen. Amazingly, like if you think about it, one way to look at it too is like divide your house. So you have 6 rooms in your house, right? And it's a $600,000 house. The kitchen being the most expensive room in the house, it has appliances and fixtures and tiles and all kinds of different finishes and electrical outlets and lighting and all this other stuff. So you can think about it. That's one way to kind of look at it. Bathrooms, really, like we do some budget stuff. We do some other like more in-depth, nicer things. Even just like a tub to shower conversions right now with like the frameless glass that people are wanting, like custom tile, moving to outlets and things like that. Those are easy to spend $8,000, $10,000 on the tub to shower conversion. And, bathrooms really like a regular hall bath are going for, starting around like $15,000. Master bath, like $30,000 for a master bath. Like a lot of remodelers, they'll complain about that, but it'll be like, that's just not enough for us to really do the good work. Like a good designer, one of the best, or one of the most expensive designers, they do really good work. I've seen them say, they want $3,500 for a design for, for a full on like master bath that has multiple fixtures. It's probably usually has like some kind of soaking tub and then like another shower that's separate, or a water closet, or some other like those higher end designs, bathrooms that are going to cost $60,000, $80,000.
Yeah. Chris, when we were having supply constraints in the construction industry around lumber, I think peaked in the spring. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have some of these costs subsided, and has the cost of construction come down a little bit?
Yeah, I really haven't seen costs coming down.
Okay.
There's still like part of the biggest problem is labor availability of skilled people, and it's almost like it's sort of like the Wild West, right? There's nobody like regulating. It's like you can just choose to accept something or not, or keep looking for somebody else that can actually get the job done.
Yeah.
And it's really I feel like things are coming in. Windows are still a problem as far as that goes, like supply chain. Windows there are some companies that you need to wait 6 to 8 months to get some windows. Some of them say that they can get them to you in 6 weeks, but it ends up taking 2 or 3 months anyway.
Yeah.
But
I think you bring up a great point. So what would be the lead time if somebody wanted to put their house on the market? I don't know, say in October, but they knew that they knew that they were going to have a higher level of competition against the increased inventory that Clay was just mentioning, and they knew they needed to make some updates. And let's say it was more than just flooring and paint. Let's say that it was, updating kitchens, baths, maybe even updating some front fascias and things like this. What kind of a lead time would you kind of recommend that they consider?
Well, like a regular exterior remodel, like say if you're going to do like all windows and siding, things like that, 60 days would be a good realistic amount of time. If we moved right away on getting the permit ready and any design work or whatever that needed to happen, then that could happen in a couple of months. Pretty realistic.
Wow.
Things like interior remodels, like kitchens, can be pretty unpredictable. I would say probably the same as far as scheduling something like that and planning it out. It's going to take a few weeks to make all the decisions and line up all the people and create the schedule for getting the work started. And but yeah, typically I would say, like, for anybody thinking about doing interior remodeling, like bathrooms, kitchens, and aside from like what Clay said, like if it's really like the flooring is terrible or the kitchen is just terrible, maybe then do it. But still, I don't really think that in this environment right now, with the way that costs are with doing remodeling, and also labor costs, availability of materials, everything like that, it is making things take a long time and cost a lot more than it did 3 years ago before the pandemic. And
got it.
Everyone forgot how to do their job or something. I don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But
so would you say maybe a couple of months? Would that be realistic? 6 to 8 months, or sorry, 6 to 8 weeks, if somebody was considering putting their home on the market to do these, to get these projects taken care of, something like that?
Yeah, I would say that, I would give it another month. I would say if they wanted to sell in 3 months, that they should get started like right now. And because there's a lot of things that are just unexpected, that stall. You can order some lights, and then they just don't come, and you call the company and they're back ordered. They don't know when they're going to get them. You can't finish. And, especially things like windows and I wish I could, say that I had a magic pill and we could like do it
a
next
wand.
week.
Yes. I think that's what everybody's looking for. We live in the days of Amazon, to where Prime gets us whatever we need within a matter of 24 hours. But yet in real estate and, construction and remodeling, that just simply doesn't happen. And I think it's gotten a lot worse, just given, especially here in Austin, given the influx of people and demand, on these services against, to your point, Chris, the existing, trades that we have here in Austin. It's been somewhat tough. So I think it's a great point. If you are looking at, making these updates, you need to do it 2 to 3 months in advance, right? To really maximize the, your asking price.
Yeah,
Clay, I'd love to get your point of view.
Stress of, having to worry about whether your project is going to be completed to your sale date, things like that. That's going to be an uncomfortable situation for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Clay, what are your thoughts when you go into a house and you're about to list a home, you're walking through it, you see some updates, the market, the competition, what, your customer, has in terms of expectation of getting a top dollar on their property, because they're still kind of living like 6-12 months away as being, this is a huge seller's market. How do you navigate that consultation to say, hey, and then how do you kind of prioritize what they need to do?
So it's a learning experience now that's shifting and changing. 2 years ago, put it on the market, everything sells, and they're making enough money or they're making enough profit. They could make more, but a lot of times they're like, I don't want the headache, like just throw it on the market and it'll sell. Now we've been caught with that. And I've got a couple homes on the market that were rentals. They were investment houses, they were rentals. They went through and recarpeted and repainted it, but they're 15-year-old kitchen counters or 20-year-old kitchen cabinets. They're the darker wood when everybody wants the lighter wood now, or the tile flooring in the kitchen's not that great. The bathroom tiles and fixtures are out of date and things like that. People are passing on those houses and they're paying more for smaller houses with better updates. So my advice now, which this is just all within the last 60 days, it's moving and evolving so quickly right now. Like the inventory has gone from 1,000 homes to 9,000 homes really quickly. Sorry, yeah. Gary Keller's banging on my window right now, of all people. But the inventory has moved up so quickly that when I go into a house now, I'll say, bare minimum, you're going to have to paint. You're going to have to, stage it to look the best. And if you can redo, if your house is 15 or 20 years old, if you can redo those countertops, if you can redo the bathroom tiles and those things, you'll make more money. And it won't languish on the market. The houses that are not fixed up are sitting longer on the market, and it's very frustrating and discouraging. Me having to call and say, "Hey, I think we're going to need to drop the price." Like people have seen it now at this price for long enough that it's not selling. We gotta bring it down. If they would have, rather than dropping the price $20,000 or $30,000, if they would have put that money into updates, it would have sold for that or more very quickly.
Nice. And you brought up a great point. I don't know that it's just kind of clicking to me, and I don't know that we all caught it. And by the way, for those on the live stream, if you've got any comments or questions, please begin posting those now. We're, like I said, around 12:30 or so, we'll shift the Q&A and get those answered. But back to a comment, Clay, that you had a few minutes ago about the sellers are in a better position to do some of these updates than a buyer. It really just kind of dawned on me that, to your point, value has just kind of been created out of nowhere, just given the increased appreciation. I mean, it's almost like you've got a cash tree in the backyard that all of a sudden just grew and bloomed. A home, I won't tell you the value of mine, but let's just say that, I now have more value in this house than I did 10 years ago. And
probably
really
50% more. Probably 50% more, and you did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and I did nothing.
I'm just saying, like.
So, yeah, exactly. I did nothing other than live in it, right? And I've got now a much better loan to value ratio against the debt that I owe, that I could easily pull out tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to make those updates. In fact, I see, and I've heard, I won't, share names and whatnot, but, neighbors and friends cashing out, on some of their equity, buy cars and boats and, second homes and all other kinds of stuff. But to your point, I mean, if they need to make the updates, it seems like it's a super easy time to do it, because they've got that higher LTV value.
There's that. And then also the constraints for buyers. And we saw this a lot during the pandemic too, is they don't have the ability, if they're moving in from out of state, like they don't have the ability to buy the house and rent something for 60 days, like Chris had mentioned, or 3 months to remodel a house and not live in it, where the sellers might be able to move out and do that work, or that they're in a position where they're not using the upstairs bathrooms anyway, so they can have somebody come in and remodel those, and then for a couple of weeks they're out of a kitchen. But it's sometimes easier for the sellers to move those pieces around rather than a buyer with moving trucks behind them to figure out what to do with all that while they do the remodeling or the work to the house.
Yes, and two, they're coming in, unless they've made some cash on their previous sale, these guys are coming in more levered, right? Against the higher interest rate, they're not going to be in as good a position. So they're most likely, correct me if I'm wrong, they're most likely going to be most interested in the highest quality product, knowing full well that whenever they sign the line, sign on the dotted line, all of their cash, both the down payment and the monthly, is going towards that house versus, and I've got an extra slush fund.
Prices went up so fast. They have to.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost of the house and the prices shot up so fast, so high, that everything they had has to go into buying that house. There's no more first time $300,000 houses within 5 miles of downtown Austin. I mean, to find a 300,000, 350, you're going out to Bastrop. So it's not the first time coming here, moving, wanting to be in Austin proper, you're 600,000-700,000. And people's incomes haven't risen as fast as home prices.
That's the truth. That is the truth. I feel that and hear that all the time. Chris, question for you. Of all the projects that you're engaged in, you've got interior design stuff, we've done some exterior design stuff. Where are you seeing most of the focus these days between interior and exterior?
Where am I seeing most of the work being done?
Yeah.
Exterior stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing mostly? And I know we just recently did a project together on a pretty neat update on a fascia, new windows, and it really changed the dynamic, the look of the home completely. I mean, I think when it's all said and done, that's going to be a cool project. What are you seeing mostly in terms of those exterior updates?
Yeah, I just hope that she got a good deal on that house, because there were a lot of things that it needed to be done, that were real problems, like leaking siding and things like that she wasn't really prepared for. And like the story that Clay was telling about, the moving trucks and stuff like that, like that was kind of the situation. Was like, she's like, well, I don't know if I should move in or what I should do. I'm just kind of camping out here, and like all my stuff's in storage, because I don't want to like move all my stuff in and then have to move it back out when we, do the bathroom and all these other things. And so it's kind of a pretty precarious situation to get into.
There's a lot of value for having it done when you move in.
Yeah,
it's true. I mean, I would say that I mean, we do a lot of repairs and things like that, updates for siding. But yeah, I've been seeing like more exterior stuff. I don't know, for whatever reason, like people wait until it gets really hot and they want to do exterior remodeling on their house. Like, it's 100 degrees out. Let's replace the siding.
Yeah, okay. Your favorite projects in the months of July and August, right?
Hardest job in Austin right now is probably a roofer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, we did. I have a guy that I work with, who I just recently started working together with, and super good, like very knowledgeable, very fast, efficient. And he's good at roofing too. And we did a little bit of a repair work where we had to replace this fascia in the corner of the house that was sort of rotting, where, you know, the fascia meets the rake board going up, and tear off part of the roofing to get to the way that they had built it was that the fascia on the end of the rake wall was basically hanging off the decking, which was tongue roof decking. So it's kind of a strange design, like architecturally, but we had to open up the roof, take off the asphalt shingle roofing, pull that back in order to actually be able to reattach new fascia to it, and kind of like repair the way the joint was made at the end is a kind of a bad practice that I've seen a lot in Texas, where they miter a rake board to a horizontal fascia, and it's not really a good way to make a joint. But anyway, regardless of that, I guess, I mean,
there's always nuances, right?
Lately, like I said, I haven't had a lot of clients, you know, that were people, you know, trying to sell their house or getting prepared to sell their house, at least not for a few years, not for 3 or 4 years.
Yes. Very good, Chris. So we just got a question from Kelly on the line. So she says, love the idea of making the improvements. Love the idea of sellers making the improvements. Work with certified interior designers to assist your sellers in making the best choices and the return on investment. We know our stuff, and I totally agree. Comments?
I wish they would.
Play on that. Yeah.
I wish they would. I mean, I wish every seller would. So Kelly, please send your information on that, and I'll definitely keep it and pass it along. The worst is when they say, I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what to do. And they do it, and you come back and you're like, oh, it looks nice. You know, like there's people that I think hire their design, or they might not see enough houses like we do and like Kelly does, to where they know what the newest trend is or what the best things are. Like, you don't want to put the new finishes in your house that were in style 5 or 7 years ago. You want to do the stuff that's today. You know, you don't want it to look dated when you're done. So hiring an interior designer, it would be a very, very smart move. Yeah,
I agree. I agree with that completely. And I'll also say that, you know, so at AustinSketch, I mean, what we do is we help the homeowner realize and visualize what the update is going to look like. So it does help, kind of, I think, Clay, to your point with that. And then obviously we provide the plans to get them over to Chris so he can execute. But we work mostly with designers and contractors and agents and homeowners. I mean, but oftentimes we do work with designers because they're the ones that ultimately have the vision. We just end up putting that in 3D models and allowing the vision to be validated by the homeowner. So we use designers quite a bit. And to your point, I wish we would use more. It's usually just a question of cost and confidence. A lot of homeowners don't really know, you know, who to go to in terms of design work. So Kelly, thanks for your perspective on that, and we'll certainly, you know, carry your. We might even have you in a future Austin Home Live. It'd be great to have your input there. Chris, your thoughts on using designers?
Yeah, you know, I like good designers if they're good. You know, if they really know their stuff, it makes my job, as far as putting things together, a lot easier. I usually refer people to, you know, somebody like Clay, or if I'm not hiring Clay or someone else to do some design work, then it's good to have the owners. I mean, especially if it's more complicated, you know, so many times people are like, oh, well, I know what I want, and here's this photograph, but they don't understand that, like, that photograph and what they have already is like are vastly different, and they're, you know, we need measurements and quantities of materials and color selections and all of these other things, you know, to get to that point. And that takes a little bit of time. So it's a little bit harder than some people would imagine, with, even just, it's like, oh, I can, install a barn door, but then they put the door in and they don't realize that door is going to hit the window treatment over here.
Yes, exactly.
There's all these things
exactly
that are, not done correctly and not really well planned out. So it ends up kind of making their project more difficult or take longer, and then they're not really even happy with the result. And so I recently also we did an exterior remodel, and at first it turned into, it was some issues with some decks on this house. There was a back deck, there was a balcony deck, and then the front deck that was also, and it was just built incorrectly. They had parapet walls that were not flashed right, so they were leaking into the house and causing some pretty serious, it could have caused some pretty serious damage had it gone unchecked. But I remember the owner, Andrew, at the end of the project, we had done the back deck and the front deck, and he was like, I just really realized like the value of hiring a designer, because when it came to the end of it, I think they paid this designer to help them with the paint colors and sort of give them a vision for what they wanted the patio to look like. We had drawn like the structural part of it, where, here are the railings and the stairs are going to be like this and all those things, so that they could make decisions about what kind of railings that they wanted to see that ultimately, and help them to understand what the end picture would look like. But he was really sold on it. He's like, it's so much easier, because he's a busy person. He's working on, doing marketing stuff online all day, and he probably works 60 hours a week. I don't know. And he's like, I could just pay this designer, and they came up with good ideas and it worked well. And I didn't have to, because he would spend a lot of time struggling with all these decisions. And he found that it was really nice to just be able to hand that off to somebody who had those years of experience and understood, how to draw things. And because a lot of people don't really realize how much goes into it. I remember a few years ago, like about 4 years ago, I was like, man, I need to learn to draw stuff, because I, need to figure out these construction details, not only just for my material lists and process of building whatever it is, but also to have an agreement that's clear with the owner. Because if we decide, they're like, yeah, build a deck, and then I build a deck, and they're like, oh, that's not what I wanted. Well, if you don't have a design that's drawn out, and like the 3D helps a lot too, then it's like I've got one idea in my head, and they've got a totally different idea in their head.
Yes.
So,
and
the perspective of, them knowing what they're getting, and also the efficiency of it. So I started trying to draw, and, using, it was like Chief Architect or SketchUp or whatever. And I realized pretty quickly that this was going to be like a 4-year learning to be able to get to a point where I could, quickly and efficiently be able to put together ideas that were in my head and put them into the software in a way that was, a reasonable amount of time, without, taking 12 hours to do something very simple.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we've really tried to strive for, is getting those plans. We use a ton of technology, obviously, at AustinSketch. But the idea is that because this stuff does take time, you need the materials list, permitting and all that other stuff to get started. We use all of that technology to try to get that visualization validated and approved by the homeowner and the contractor, so that way you do have that kind of that interlock, and everybody is singing out of the same songbook. And yes, this is exactly what I want, and you see, yes, okay, I've got the plans for exactly what you want, and we can do that, really fast, even within a week. Chris, better than anybody, a week to 10 days, and getting that turned around. And so I think that's what's key, because to your point, that stuff can take a lot of time in getting the plans and everything validated. I have one more question here that we have time for today, and I think it's really probably more geared to you, Clay. And they were asking about the Marble Falls area, the kind of the west part of Austin. Are you seeing a lot of activity and growth from a real estate perspective in those areas?
I love Horseshoe Bay and I love Marble Falls and Spicewood and all that direction. And it has, in the last 2 years, really taken off. Prior to the pandemic, if somebody called and said, hey, I've got a house that I want to list in the Spicewood area, kind of out that direction, I'd sign a 1-year listing agreement because it could take a long time. But when the pandemic hit, people were looking at second homes, retirement homes, vacation homes that, like Horseshoe Bay has 5 or 6 golf clubs. They have the restaurants, they have the lake club, they have all that great stuff that when you're confined to not travel by aircraft and you want to go by car, then Horseshoe Bay is a fantastic spot. I'll be curious to see what that market kind of does now if people are able to travel to Europe and they're able to do different things with their vacation money than buying a vacation house. So it's kind of a wait and see. But historically, that's been a second home retirement community that had a huge influx from the pandemic. So it's a wait and see. I mean, I think it's, the fundamentals are there. The only thing that it's missing for a big bulk of the market is jobs. I mean, the jobs are still back in Austin, and the commute from Marble Falls to downtown Austin is going to be an hour or more. And so that's, I think, the only thing that's going to constrain it to maintain its momentum that it's had from the pandemic years.
Awesome. I really want to thank everybody here, for joining today. It was a lot of fun, and we certainly look forward to hosting these on the first and third Thursday going forward of every month. Our next Austin Home Live will be August the 4th with the topic, Homes I'm Looking to Buy Need Updating. And in the spirit of the community, if you would like to see us cover a specific topic or would like to be a part of a future show, Kelly, that's you, please let me know. We'd love to have you. I want to thank our guest today, Chris Lambert of East Austin Carpenters. Chris is a great guy, and if you're looking for exceptional carpentry or remodeling work, I'd highly recommend giving Chris a call. I'd also like to thank my guest, Clay McLaughlin from Keller Williams. Clay and I worked together for many years on a couple of projects, even in Spicewood. And if you don't have a stellar real estate agent here in Austin, Clay would be a great call to make. My name is Clay Simmons with AustinSketch. We are a 3D modeling and design company, as I mentioned before. Our motto is see it before you build it. And we'd be happy to help you visualize and plan your next remodeling and construction project. Again, thanks for tuning in today, and we look forward to seeing you back August the 4th.